Start out with just please tell me your name and what your name is now and what your name was.
Oh.
And look in here.
My name is Charles French. I had a bris and a name change by the doctor. The doctor and the rabbi were father and son. And they never heard of a Jew with a Spanish name. Our family name is Franco. So the father right away said, this is nicht kein Yiddischer Namen. That's converted to French. So Franco and French mean the same thing. My father didn't have any objections. Yeah. And when I was in the army.
Did you have any brothers or sisters?
Oh yeah. We're a family of 5. 3 brothers, 2 sisters.
And where were you born?
I was born in Brooklyn on Pennsylvania Avenue. We had a little farm. Shortly after I was born, Brooklyn was united to New York. So we had to give up the farm. No livestock. Not even chickens. And the only one that was allowed was our closest neighbor, a half a mile away. He had a dairy farm. He was allowed. And they were so good, they were licensed to milk the cows and not even pasteurize the milk. It was a very high grade. Very, very good. Yeah. And they were our neighbors. And it's strange, it's a small world. We lost track. We lived on the east side. I never lived in a Jewish neighborhood, so I didn't have much religious training.
Did you have much anti-Semitism when you were growing up?
Yeah.
Not being in a Jewish neighborhood?
When I was 12 years old, we moved into the Jewish neighborhood, Eldridge Street, in Manhattan on the east side. And I went to synagogue so I could prepare for my bar mitzvah. And my bar mitzvah was made in Spanish. Our congregation are all Spanish Jews. And as Sephardim, we pray in Spanish. And we have a lot of the passages, we sing it in Hebrew or Spanish, either way. And it was very interesting.
Could you still speak Spanish?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
How about your brothers? Or what was your father's occupation?
My father was a coppersmith in Turkey. He and my uncle were the only survivors when the Germans rushed through. Turkey dominated all Europe, all the way up to Poland. And when they were chased out of Europe, the only thing they had was Istanbul, which is on the very tip. You take the bridge and you're in Asia, Turkey.
Yeah.
And we adopted fairly well with them because they don't eat pork. And if we were in the army, we were first citizens. And if you're not in the army, you're second-rate citizen. Yeah. So, my grandfather fought for the Turks. And he fought hard. All the way up North Africa, all the way up to Jerusalem. And his colonel and him were very friendly. And they both came from the same town in Yugoslavia, which is named now. And in Yugoslavia, he had a big farm with orchards of fruits and nuts, everything real rich. And he liked my grandfather. He said, Abraham, they pronounce it Abraham. And he says, when I die, I want you to have this ranch.
Wow.
And it came to pass, the poor guy did die, and my grandfather took over. When the Germans come slamming through, they took his whole family away.
What year would that be? About
1941. And he had 5 daughters and 18 sons.
Wow, with the same mother?
2 mothers.
2 mothers.
2 mothers. And they took the family away. Grandpa was very peeved, very, very angry. And being an ex-soldier, even at the age of 102,
He lived to 102?
he went over the mountain into Salonik. And I left my grandmother at the monastery on top of the hill because she was blind. She needed help. We got to Salonik. He joined the Greek guerrilla army. And we got all this news from the survivors, his neighbors that knew him. Wow. So when they come to the States, that's how we found out how illustrious my grandfather was. He was quite a marksman.
What an incredible guy.
Killed a lot of Germans. And he finally got killed at 105.
How did he get killed?
All this time
He got killed where? In
Yugoslavia.
Yugoslavia. By the Germans?
And Salonik. Yeah, on both sides.
That's incredible for someone to live that long. Wow.
Yeah.
At that time.
Well, he had good longevity. And maybe I have a lot of his.
You've got good genes too, Charlie. Huh?
Could be.
I bet.
Yeah. God willing, I hope for good. Yeah.
Well, you are doing great. So what happened? Tell me about your life when you grew up, or what your life was like before you joined the American Army. Were you drafted?
Well, as I said, we moved to the east side because we had to give up the farm.
Right.
Yeah. And at the east side, we had our own congregation on Eldred Street.
And that was a Jewish neighborhood.
Yeah.
Right.
And we were all Spanish Jews, and that synagogue we belonged to came from the same town in Yugoslavia, Manastir. And everybody knew each other. And I used to get a joy out of when they sang Enkamalkenu, Enkamoshienu. At the end of that passage, we would stand up and say it in Spanish. Tu sos monstruo yo, tu sos monstruo Señor, tu sos monstruo Rey, tu sos monstruo Salvador. And then back in Hebrew again.
Hey, you're good. Okay.
And I haven't seen a congregation like that yet. We came across a Sephardic congregation here in Scottsdale. They were all of French descent. When the Spanish Jews were being prosecuted in Spain because they were trying to force us to be Christians, they left. They managed to get to Belgium and France. And so they were free for a while. They had troubles later. And they were not the kind of give-up people. They try to fight hard back, just like in Jesus' time. Jesus was a leader, of a revolutionary leader.
Yeah.
They keep fighting the Romans. Yeah. We did the same thing. And when finally it came our turn, Turkey sent ships to Spain. They're going to free us, which we didn't know. They had ulterior motives. We were the only educated people in Europe. So they took us to Asia Minor and remote parts of Europe and scattered us around so we could help economic conditions. And those of us that were militaristic, we taught the Turks how to make cannons. Spain was a world power. Our people were the admirals, the captains. When we had to leave, had nobody there. Sir Francis Drake beat them with rowboats, as the saying goes. Yeah. And
Okay.
Turkey became a world power. They fought all Europe, all the way up to Poland. Yeah. And they didn't have to give up until after World War I. At the Versailles Treaty, they were pushed out of Europe. The only city you had in Europe was Istanbul. And if you take the bridge, you're in Asia Minor, Turkey. Yeah.
You know
And
your
our
history.
people lived there for 500 years. We took on a lot of their customs, their habits. A lot of us speak Turkish. I only know how to swear in Turkish.
Hey, where was your father born?
He was born in Monastir, Turkey.
And your mother?
My mother also was born in Monastir, Turkey. Yeah.
Okay.
And
And when were you born?
I was born November 16, 1916, in Brooklyn on that little farm. We had goats, we had horses,
Vegetables?
we had vegetables, mostly tomatoes.
Oh, okay.
And my father worked in Manhattan. He would take his horse and wagon, go shopping and on the east side after work. So he needed the horse and wagon to bring the stuff back. And
What about your brothers? Or who?
my
how many-
brothers, Richard was born. He was the oldest,
Where do you fit in the family?
number 3.
You're number 3?
Yeah, my sister Molly, Malika, she was number 2. She was in charge of me. The older one always in charge of the younger one to see they don't get into trouble or into mischief. Yeah, and that was the way we operated. And everybody had to do something. We always worked. As long
Got
as you
along
could
good.
walk, you work.
You got along okay together.
Huh?
You got along okay.
Oh, yeah.
That's
Oh, yeah. He wouldn't dare. My father was 6'2".
wow.
If he looked at us, that was enough.
He didn't have to touch you.
Hell no. We never got beat up.
Wow.
But we know he meant business. And he reached for his belt, never took it off.
You were happy about that.
Yeah. And he'd cuss us in Turkish. Yeah.
So when did you go into the Army, the American Army?
He went into the Army when we lived in Brooklyn, also in the Sephardic neighborhood of New Lots,
Okay.
which is very close to the BMT station of New Lots. And the former farms we had were all gone. And we were raised there in the Boy Scouts, the Sea Scouts, and then it came time to enlist in the Army. I was called. I answered the call.
What time? What? How old were you when you were called in? And
I was,
you were probably young, like 17.
I think,
16.
20.
Oh, you were 20. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And we were hauled off quickly to Fort Bragg.
Fort Bragg, North Carolina.
Yeah.
I was stationed there too.
Yeah.
In the Army.
And we had a lot of trouble in town because they didn't like Northerners. After we left for overseas, they cried. They were sorry we went. We finally got friendly. And they came to see that New Yorkers were no different than the Southerners, just trying to make a living. That's all. Regular family life. Yeah. And no bad reputations. Yeah. And we left. And we went to Quantico, the Marine base. Besides training in Fort Bragg, we were trained by the Marines. Everybody had to know how to swim.
Let's see, what year would this be?
1942,
1942, okay.
I think January. Yeah. And we learned all about ships, handling the ship's guns. And we're like seamen. And then we were shipped overseas from Fort Dix. And there's an underground passage. I was very surprised. All of a sudden, we find ourselves in New York, Bush Terminal. And from there, we mounted the ships, checked the armament, checked our bunks, and I got a lot of guts. I don't care. I asked the colonel's driver, "You want to see New York?" He says, "I'd love to see New York." "Do you think the colonel is using his car?" He says, "No. He has a lot of meetings. If we leave now and got back before dark, I'll be okay." It was Yom Kippur Day. I don't know how my mother knew, but she was expecting me. The door was wide open. And before it got dark, there was supper on the table for two.
That's amazing. What a story that is.
Yeah, my mother was
She
like
knew.
that.
Yeah.
She could always foresee things.
Yeah.
And he was pleased with our Jewish type of meal. And he's a southern boy. And we got back to the ship unnoticed.
Timing worked out perfect.
The next day, we pulled up anchor, we took away. As we passed Rockaway Beach, which was my summer playground, and that we used to work the beaches to make a living after the playground time. Anywhere up to 12 o'clock, I could play. After 12, I had to work. And we had to sell candy on the beach, Turkish candy, yeah, which everybody loved. We had steady customers. And a lot of people.
It?
Huh?
Did you like it?
Did I like it?
Yeah.
I loved it. We not only ate it as candy, it's also eaten as food. Sesame seed has a lot of nourishment.
Yeah, that sounds good.
With the sweetness and the nuts in there, it made it very nourishing. Turks could work with a loaf of bread and a Turkish candy or sesame seeds cooked. Worked 16 hours a day. And they had a special license at the railroad stations. In order to get the license, they had to lift 300 pounds. So it was very nourishing food. You could see. Anyway, my eyes got wet as we left Rockaway Beach out of sight. And Lady Liberty was to our right on the other side, and that disappeared. And we hit the open sea. We hit the open sea, we got near Newfoundland, we hit a sunken ship and developed a hole in the ship. So the pumps started working, taking out the hole, and we changed our bunks. They made a mistake in the quarters. I was a sergeant. I wasn't meant to have officers' quarters. You know, regular staterooms, down in the hold. And where's my bunk? On top of dynamite. If the ship bumped into something severe, that's it, goodbye.
Goodbye.
Yeah. Anyway, we got to Scotland. And from there, we got to England. And in England, it was Thanksgiving Day. Airplanes flew in with turkey dinners, and the Bank of England ran a dance for us because we were special. We helped Montgomery in Africa. We helped close the gap. They from Jerusalem, on us from North Africa, from Algeria, and we kept pounding the Germans on both sides. We met in Tunisia, and from there we took off, and we could hear BBC on our radios, and BBC was warning us of submarines being outside waiting for us. They already had intelligence that we were going to England so we could mass and attack in France. Yeah. And they're very gung-ho. We made it through. We got to England. All the ships made it. And we had more training.
You were part of what division? Army?
9th Infantry
You were in the
Division.
9th Infantry, okay.
Yeah. Then we boarded ships for the landing in France. And our target was Saint-Mère-Église. We were to make it through the beach. It was D-Day +3. Make it to the beach, make it up the cliffs and into the woods and meet there, get organized, and go to attack Saint-Mère-Église. There wasn't too much action. A lot of the Germans were already killed by the paratroops before we got there. And the mayor came to greet us. We're heroes of France, yeah. And they had a lot of grape farms. And guys were getting drunk.
Were you one of them?
Not me, I don't get drunk. I like to know what's happening. Yeah. And then...
If you were drunk, you wouldn't know what's going on.
Yeah. Then we got on the line, and we're making good progress. And we're going through Saint-Lô and Pierre's. They were crossroads. And we're to meet there with the 1st Division and the reorganized 82nd Airborne Division. They were all busted up with our own guns. They misfired, miscalculated.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And we had to organize them, and we got together. We got together, hit the line, and we're getting ready for a big push. And we're sending up signals, flares, so we could show where we are. And the same problem happened. When the Air Force came through, the liberators, they dropped all the bombs on us. The wind blew the smoke away.
Oh my
The
God.
Germans were not stupid. They saw that. They pulled back. They pulled back. Well, McNair was 150 yards from me, General McNair. He got killed there. Our shirts were bouncing with concussion. All day, all night. When daylight came, everything was rectified, and we started moving out. We started moving out, and that was the start of the chase. We were chasing the Germans all through Europe, up through Belgium, Holland, and into Belgium and into Germany. Yeah. And then when we got to Germany, we got to the Maginot Line before that, and then their line, the Siegfried Line, was very heavily fortified. And from the way we came, we couldn't see them. but we saw air shafts. And on the other side was the opening. So we were behind them. Well, we had hardly any ammunition. We had hardly any guns. And the result was we're playing cat and mouse. Take a hand grenade, smoke. Throw it down the air shaft. That's how they were getting air in their bunkers. They come out, they thought it was gas. We machine gunned them. We killed them all. Yeah. And then we moved out. We took this little town of Lammersdorf. And the biggest, strongest house and the tallest was the bakery. So we took over the bakery. As a forward observer, we have to observe where the enemy is and we direct the fire on them. And we're always ahead of the infantry or with the infantry. We're either protecting them or protecting them from an assault. And we've rained down all our 105s and they pray to God. And it seemed like there was a little halt and the Germans were getting together, getting organized. They're very fast at that, even faster than us. Meantime, they sent the barrage. We were in the garden, and the little girl, the baker's daughter, was with us. She's the only one that got killed. The baker was furious. He used to be in the German army, and of all things, the field artillery. He says, I know where they are. And he showed us a map. And he started directing fire on them, getting even on them, killing his beautiful little daughter. Yeah. What a pity. And then we went ahead and started pushing. We finally got to the cow. We got to another prison camp, Nordhausen.
Nordhausen. That was your first
Yeah.
concentration camp? Nordhausen?
We got in there. What a sight. Unbelievable. You couldn't believe people could be treated that way. There were quite a few hundred in open trenches. Some were alive yet and moaning, and some were dead. And then with a bulldozer, they cover them over. We got there just before that, and all the guards ran away. And some of them were walking dead. And we don't have a kitchen. As photo observers, the infantry don't feed us. So we got to capture our food from farmhouses as we go, or go fishing with hand grenades. Get a dozen at a time. And no pots, we use clay. Throw them in the ashes, bake them, hit them like 2 dishes to open up, and the scales and skins stay with the clay.
Oh.
And we eat them. Or else we steal chickens and things like that. But K rations, I had 3 cans of cheese left for reserve, just in case. Yeah. And we gave it to the first 3 prisoners we saw. They were hungry.
So you didn't see any Germans?
Huh?
The Germans left, right?
Germans left.
Did
They
you
were
see
gone.
them?
They weren't there at all. And they were all coming out of the barracks, like, and walking around, and very happy to see us. And I thought we'd feed 3 at least, which was a big mistake.
Big mistake to feed.
They fell down, they got deathly sick. I heard later on they died. You can't feed them rich food that fast, and it ain't rich. It's half mixed. Yeah. So it wasn't all solid cheese.
Yeah.
Still, it was too rich for them. And we were told, don't feed them, stop, stop. Don't. I know we feel sorry for them. Don't feed them, you'll kill them. They can't eat right away. You gotta have special foods, liquids, and things like that. And we gotta debug them. They were spraying them with DDT, which they wouldn't do today. But again, we didn't know. Yeah. But they were full of insects.